That Mew versus Nidoking battle might have been the most one-sided battle in the history of the anime. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are here reviewing the new Pokemon series, Pocket Monsters, or most likely what it'll just be called in the States, Pokemon the series. And this is the first episode, called The Birth of Pikachu. Not his actual birth, that would be weird, just how he evolved from a Pichu to a Pikachu. This episode also has the backstory of Go. So, let's get started. I want to start off talking about the intro first, even though the intro for this episode was at the end of the episode instead of the beginning. But anyways, the visuals kind of remind me of a mix of the XY and Sun and Moon. It has that cartoony aesthetic of Sun and Moon with a similar, very utilitarian style to XY. Honestly, it immediately reminded me of the first XYZ opening. I'm probably going to put up a side-by-side comparison so you see what I'm talking about. But yeah, so it reminded me of that. But the dancing and fun of the Sun and Moon episodes. The visuals itself are fine, but I think the more important thing is about the music. Personally for me, I think it might just take me a while to get used to. It didn't immediately grab me. It kind of sounded like any other generic anime opening, which is a bit disappointing because Pokemon usually tends to have a very unique sound. But like I said, maybe eventually I'll get used to it. Let me know in the comments how you feel about the new opening. So this episode's really just split up into two parts. The intro to Pichu and how it became a Pikachu, and Go and Koharu's introduction. For the intro to Pichu side, we originally see that Pikachu was a Pichu, and originally it wanted some sort of companionship. Then it eventually found one in a baby Kangaskhan and a mama Kangaskhan, who was willing to take Pichu and raise it as their own. Pichu has fun with it and all that. But eventually, it leads to a point where Pichu thinks that it's being more of a burden than helping, so it decides to go on its own journey. But before it does that, it evolves into a Pikachu. Pretty quick, pretty self-explanatory. For the Go and Koharu introduction, the episode really begins with Ash wanting to go to a camp, but like usual, he's late so he doesn't get to go. Instead, we see Go and Koharu are in this camp right here. So this is different from the camp that he later went to, presumably. We meet Go, who is a young child who's smart, loves Pokemon, and Koharu, who's a friend of her, and we don't really get to know much about her except that she's the daughter of the professor that we're going to meet next episode. But what's more important here is that Go is fascinated with Pokemon. His goal is to capture all the Pokemon in the world. But that goal doesn't, I don't want to say necessarily changes, but his goal upgrades to just capturing all the Pokemon to capturing Mew specifically when he spots Mew battling a Nidoking. And this battle between Mew and Nidoking is super one-sided, but it's also an incredible battle in terms of animation. After it learns about Mew from Professor Oak, it decides that it wants to capture Mew. So there it is, that's the entire episode. I know it doesn't sound like a lot. And honestly, it's split up into two, so it's really not that much. It's more of a backstory episode, so there's not going to be a lot of new information here, except for about Go and Koharu. The first thing I'm going to say is that I'm glad that Ash missed his camp here. If he would have made it, the show would have had to fit in Serena somehow, and that would have been a nightmare because then the episode turns its focus from introducing these two new characters to, oh, Serena. I don't have a problem with Serena, but I'm just saying that her being there would take away from the episode. So I'm glad that they decided to do that. In terms of the episode itself, just like it's split into two, I'm on two minds of it. One half of the episode I really like, and one half of the episode I kind of found a bit boring and useless. Can you tell which is which? The Go and Koharu and the Pokemon camp stuff I really love, and on the other hand, I think the Pichu bit was a bit unnecessary. It was purely there just to connect Ash with his upcoming friends, because in the middle of this episode, Go and Koharu are chasing Mew after spotting it, and eventually Mew is running away, and it comes across the baby Kangaskhan that the Pichu knows. The Mew then plays around with this baby Kangaskhan on a cliff before the cliff falls, and Mew saves it, and Go and Koharu are there to witness that. So that's a connection there. But those two things, they don't need to be connected. those two things can stand alone. You can have the thing with Mew and Go and Kangaskhan be a standalone thing and not regarding Pichu at all, and it wouldn't make a difference. I guess it's good to have a backstory for Pichu, but the reason there's unnecessary. Here's why. What does it tell us about Pikachu that we didn't know before? Think about that. And I don't mean how it became a Pikachu, I mean in terms of its character. Does it tell us something new? And the answer to that, unfortunately, I found is no. The thing with doing backstories is that they need to serve a purpose. They need to tell us about a character, why they are the way they are, or need to tell us something that'll come up in the future. And in this case, they didn't do either. Sure, there's a thinly veiled connection between Pichu and Go now, but that's never going to be important to the story. Go doesn't know that Pichu he saw was eventually going to turn into Ash's Pikachu, and Ash's Pikachu doesn't know that the kid it saw, or maybe didn't see, the show doesn't really make it that clear, was Go, so it's never going to come up in the future. Not only that, but it really doesn't tell us about Pikachu's past either. I mean, we learn about Pichu and how it evolved into a Pikachu, that's fine, but what does it tell us about Pikachu itself? It doesn't tell us why it was so upset when it was caught by Oak. I mean, we can assume that it's because it wanted to find its own adventure and was upset that it was caught, but even then, we're making assumptions. You want to know a backstory episode done right? There's really been only two in terms of the entire Pokemon series that have really been done excellently in my opinion. The James backstory, where we learn about his past and what caused him to join Team Rocket and abandon his rich house, and Go West Young Meowth, the episode where we'll find out about how Meowth came to be. If you look at those two episodes, it tells you more about their characters than any other episodes. It explains why Meowth can talk and gives sympathy to him, and we find out what leads to him wanting validation. For James, we find out that even though he has everything, he was searching for something more. Those are backstories done right. This one, it wasn't a bad episode or a bad backstory by any means, but honestly, if it didn't exist, it wouldn't make a single bit of difference. It's funny because in the same episode where they do this Pichu backstory, and I'm complaining about it right now, the Go backstory is actually done pretty well. We find out about his personality, that he knows a lot about Pokemon, we find out about his goal to capture all the Pokemon, and we see the events that lead him to wanting to catch Mew in the future. Bam, that's how you do it. It tells us the who, what, and why. I don't want to just talk about the negatives though, let's also talk about the positives. Namely, the art and animation in this episode. Some of the moves here look like they got a massive upgrade like Bubble Beam and Fire Blast, and the fighting just looks so crisp. The art style is so pleasing to the eye, and it's crazy because there's a shot right after the baby Kangaskhan gets saved by Mew, and it's a shot from behind of Go and Koharu looking ahead. And it's not really particularly an important shot, they're just kind of looking ahead and all we see is this mountain. But the coloring, the art style, the composition, oh man, it just looks incredible. If they're able to do that with just something like a mountainside cliff, I can't wait to see what they can do with a more interesting background. We didn't get to see the outro of this episode, so we don't really know how the outro to the series is going to be, but I guess we'll find out next episode. And you know what, I'm really looking forward to that. This episode though, it's a decent episode with seeing Pikachu's backstory and learning about Go. Honestly, even though I'm kinda complaining about it, don't skip it because the battle scenes are really worth it. It just looks incredible. The next episode is really when the show is going to begin. It looks like we're going to see Ash meeting Koharu and Go, and Ash and Go riding on a Lugia along with a raid battle, and maybe we'll even find out Ash's ultimate goal for this series. I can't wait. But anyways, that's it for my Pocket Monsters Episode 1 review. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe. Let me know below your thoughts on this episode. You can also follow me on Twitter at TheRealPDGaming and let me know there, and that's it. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.